As former U.S. President Donald Trump secures his election win, President Yoon spoke with the president-elect, and the two agreed to meet at an early date. President Yoon held a press conference today and apologized to the public amid a series of controversies surrounding the First Lady and a political consultant. South Korea's current account balance continued to remain in the black in September, reporting a surplus of over $11 billion on the back of higher demand of chips. It's November 7th, 8 p.m. in Seoul. This is Newscenter. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon Min. Former President Donald Trump's return to the White House has been confirmed, and his contender, Kamala Harris, conceded and congratulated him on his victory. Our Pei-Eun-ji starts us off.
Trump has been declared the official winner and the 47th President of the United States, after gaining more than the 270 electoral votes needed to win this year's presidential election. Races haven't been called yet in Nevada and Arizona, but he is in the lead in both states, meaning that he has practically won in all 7 key battleground states. Those include Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, grouped as blue wall states that were once known for their strong Democratic support.
But it's a political victory that our country has never seen before, nothing like this. I want to thank the American people for the extraordinary honor of being elected your 47th president and your 45th president.
Meanwhile, Harris delivered a concession speech, telling supporters that they must accept the results, while adding that she spoke with Trump and congratulated him on his victory.
A fundamental principle of American democracy is that when we lose an election, we accept the results. That principle, as much as any other, distinguishes democracy from monarchy or tyranny.
While the count continues in some states, voter turnout in this year's presidential election is expected to be close to the record high set in 2020. According to a Washington Post analysis of data from the Associated Press and the University of Florida Election Lab, as of 6 p.m. Eastern Time on Wednesday, voter turnout for this election stood at 65%. This year's figure is not expected to surpass the record of 66% reached 4 years ago, but it is said to be the second highest in the past century. Since the U.S. electoral system is based on indirect voting, it will still take weeks before the tallies are officially confirmed. The states will certify their results, and each state's executive, the governor in most cases, will sign certificates on December 11th that formally allocate the state's electors to the winning candidate. Then, on the first Tuesday after the second Wednesday in December, which falls on December 17th this year, the electors will meet and cast their votes. The electoral votes will be counted on January 6th, and President-elect Trump will officially be sworn in on Inauguration Day, on January 20th. Pei-Eun-ji, Arirang News.
President Yoon and U.S. President-elect Donald Trump held a brief talk over the phone this morning, during which they agreed to set up an in-person meeting in the near future. Our Oh Soo-young covers this exchange and more.
President Yoon and incoming U.S. President Donald Trump agreed to meet in person soon and continue strong cooperation as they expressed concern towards North Korea's security threat and its involvement in the Ukraine war. This came during a 12-minute phone call on Thursday morning's Seoul time, just half a day following Trump's sweeping electoral victory on U.S. exit polls. Yoon's office says the South Korean leader congratulated the president-elect on a significant victory, to which Trump expressed his gratitude and conveyed his warm regards to the people of South Korea. Amid North Korea's security threat to the Indo-Pacific and the world, and its deployment of troops to aid Russia's war with Ukraine, Yoon and Trump exchanged assessments of the ongoing developments and expressed mutual concern over the war situation. They also touched upon North Korea's evolving nuclear capabilities, ICBM launches, incursions of waste-carrying balloons and GPS jamming in the West Sea. Trump and Yoon also discussed trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the US and Japan. Yoon noted the three-way relationship has grown stronger, leading to the establishment of the trilateral Camp David framework. He said this is in part due to Trump's first term, which enabled trilateral cooperation. This comes amid concern in Seoul and Washington that a second Trump presidency would water down the efforts during the Biden administration to institutionalize the three-way cooperation reached at the Camp David summit in August last year. Under the Camp David spirit and principles, the three sides had agreed to hold annual top-level meetings, jointly deter North Korea's nuclear and missile threat, address regional and economic security issues, and collaborate on cutting-edge technologies. As Seoul and Washington upgraded their ties to a global comprehensive strategic alliance last year, Yoon told Trump he hoped the South Korea-US alliance would continue as a close partnership spanning security, economy, and all other areas. Trump agreed, saying he hopes to continue strong cooperation between their two countries. The two also agreed to jointly build up leadership in the Indo-Pacific region, the Korean Peninsula, and on a global scale. Trump added that he heard much about the South Korean president's leadership and mentioned that the US shipbuilding industry requires South Korea's support and cooperation. Separately, in a press conference on Thursday, Yoon said he had no concerns about working with Trump and that he'd been forming relationships with figures close to the incoming president. As Trump is likely to be briefed on North Korea, among other security-related issues, Yoon suggested to the media that they could talk more afterwards, perhaps with Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba.
Yoon and Trump agreed on the need to meet in person to discuss bilateral issues more extensively. A Seoul presidential official told reporters that the incoming US president expressed his desire to meet as soon as possible. The date and location of their first meeting will be discussed promptly between their teams. Seoul, Arirang News.
And global leaders are congratulating U.S. President-elect Donald Trump on his election victory. Beijing's state media CCTV reported Thursday that Chinese President Xi Jinping called for stable, healthy, and sustainable China-U.S. relations in a congratulatory message to Trump. She underscored the need to properly manage differences by strengthening dialogue and communication. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump's return history's greatest comeback. His office said the two discussed working for Israel's security and the Iranian threat over the phone. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy also congratulated Trump on his, quote, historic landslide victory. Now attention is on how Trump's policies will impact South and North Korea. Our Kim Jong-sil spoke with experts on the expected changes.
Throughout his presidential campaign, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump emphasized his ability to strengthen ties with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, as well as with the leaders of China and Russia. This has sparked widespread speculation on what his foreign policy will look like in a second term.
I had a very good relationship with President Xi, and a very good relationship with Putin, and a very good relationship with Kim Jong-un, who has a nuclear force that you won't even believe.
Professor Imul-chul of Gyeongnam University says Trump's return could present an opportunity for Pyongyang.
Trump's policy toward North Korea will differ from Biden's, driven by his personal ties with Kim Jong-un and his negotiation experience. North Korea, despite having doubt, seek nuclear recognition and sanctions relief. And Kim will likely use his relationship with Trump to push for a deal.
Analysts suggest that neither Trump nor Kim would want to repeat the 2019 Hanoi summit's no-deal outcome. Therefore, both sides are expected to proceed more cautiously, particularly Kim, while Trump balances new priorities, including domestic issues, the war in Ukraine, and conflict in the Middle East. Another key question is how his second term will affect South Korea.
For South Korea, Trump's re-election is somewhat of a burden. Unlike the Biden administration, Trump has more of an economic approach, including his demand for increased defense spending, which will require many modifications.
Trump previously pressed Seoul to shoulder a larger share of the cost for U.S. troops stationed here, calling South Korea a money machine.
The baseline would be the U.S. first approach, which will be applied to all areas of policy, including defense, trade, and other diplomatic issues. But the good thing is that both the U.S. government and the Korean government have experience in this issue from the previous term. So it's time to sit down and work out the give and take deals to adjust the cause and the practical needs of both countries.
As Trump returns to office, his approach to both South and North Korea leaves much to watch on the Korean peninsula. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
In the meantime, Trump has vowed to impose a tariff of at least double digits on all imports into the U.S. once in office. Moon Hye-ryun delves into the implications of this plan for Korea and beyond.
Newly elected U.S. President Donald Trump once said in an interview that tariff is his favorite word. Leading up to the election, he made across-the-board tariffs a central campaign pledge, proposing up to 20% tariffs across most foreign goods and higher levies for ones from China.
If I run this country, if I'm going to be president of this country, I'm going to put a 100, 200, 2,000% tariff.
But economists warn that his proposed policies, including high tariffs on imports, mass deportations of migrant workers, and interference in Federal Reserve interest rate decisions, could reverse the recent decline in U.S. inflation and lead to a resurgence in rising prices.
Trump's proposed policies, even though perhaps they're not as specific as Harris's announced policies, will have higher inflationary measures.
Trump argues that tariffs will revitalize domestic manufacturing, generate new jobs, and bring in revenue to support other policies like tax cuts. He has proposed extensive tax cuts, including extending the 2017 tax cuts, which largely benefited wealthier individuals, with the intent to offset costs through economic growth and tariffs. Analysts, however, caution that this plan could worsen the national deficit. This fiscal year, the U.S. ran its largest budget deficit ever outside the COVID-19 pandemic years, and an American think tank estimates that Trump's plans would pile up $7.5 trillion in new debt. Trump's proposed tariffs also threaten to impact global trade, including South Korea's. Seoul closely monitors Washington and Beijing's trade moves as its economy, especially in semiconductors, heavily depends on both markets.
The majority of our semiconductors are used in smartphones and computers, with China responsible for 60 to 70% of exports, so this is likely to take a hit.
Clean energy industries also face an uncertain future. Trump has rallied against related laws such as the Inflation Reduction Act, which is expected to pour as much as $1.2 trillion into developing renewable energy, and has provided electric vehicle battery firms such as LG Energy Solution and SK On with tax credits. To rescind the law completely will be difficult, but the market remains wary of potential changes or delays. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Thank you very much, everybody.
President Yoon Suk-yeol addressed the nation in a televised speech earlier today, which began with an apology for causing public concern. The president denied any wrongdoing when it comes to recent political controversies. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon explains.
At his halfway mark address and press briefing on Thursday, the first thing President Yoon Suk-yeol did was to apologize for recent criticism against him over his connections to an obscure political consultant, Myung Tae-gyun.
대통령이라는 것은 변명하는 자리가 아닙니다. 모든 것이 제 불찰이고 제 부덕의 소치입니다. 국민 여러분께 먼저 죄송하다는 말씀, 진심 어린 사과의 말씀부터 드리고 그리고 이 국정 브리핑을 진행하겠습니다.
This was the biggest issue at hand building up to the briefing. The main opposition, the Democratic Party of Korea, leaked a recorded phone call between then-President-elect Yoon and Myung, during which they discussed the ruling party's candidate selection process ahead of a by-election in 2022. A president or president-elect shouldn't be interfering in party politics. Also, other recordings surfaced that showed First Lady Kim Gun-hee's connection with Myung and her possible involvement in politics. President Yoon denied any wrongdoing but accepted that he should have acted more cautiously when he became a politician. President Yoon did acknowledge that it was his fault for not changing the means of communication for him and his wife after becoming a public figure.
이게 전부 제 책임입니다. 왜냐하면 후보 시절과 또 당선인 시절과 대통령이 됨으로써 이 소통의 방식을 좀 매정하지만 바꿔야 됩니다.
Continuing on domestic politics, President Yoon also faced questions regarding what looks like a fallout with the ruling People Power Party chair Han Dong-hoon, who has been a close confidant of Yoon's since the two's prosecutor days, claiming that a part of that is from the media stirring more conflict. He also said, when both the top office and the ruling party work diligently together to deliver to the public, their relationship will naturally improve over time. President Yoon's answers to foreign policy questions were also highly anticipated as he came into the briefing just a couple hours after his phone call with U.S. President-elect Donald Trump. Concerns have been rising that the America First policy could impact South Korea's industries, but President Yoon instead showed optimism.
제가 트럼프 대통령이 얘기하는 이러한 정책들은 그건 우리 기업에게 굉장히 좀 불리하지 않냐. 참 걱정이다. 이런 얘기를 하면 걱정하지 마라. 또 그것이 어쨌든 한국 기업에게 크게 피해가 안 가게끔 여러 가지 잘 풀어나갈 것이니까 그런 얘기들을 계속 하더라고요.
He also touched on the war in Ukraine, especially with North Korea's deployment of troops for Russia. He said there are certain things from the deployment that could directly threaten the peace on the Korean peninsula. Therefore, depending on Pyongyang's involvement, he isn't ruling out weapon supply to Ukraine, beginning with defensive weapons. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
Korea's current account balance remained in the black for the fifth month in a row in September, bolstered by global demand for chips and ICT devices. Our Park Gon-woo covers the latest findings.
Favorable exports of IT products resulted in a bigger surplus for South Korea. Data from the Bank of Korea on Thursday showed that South Korea's current account balance in September recorded a surplus of over $11.1 billion. This is the fifth straight month that the country has been in the black. September saw the largest surplus in 3 months at almost double that of August. The goods account, which tracks exports and imports of products, logged a surplus and recorded an 18th straight month in the black. Exports in September rose by nearly 10% year-on-year, amounting to over $61.6 billion, while imports recorded $51 billion, resulting in a surplus of around $10.6 billion. Booming shipments of chips and ICT devices were a major factor, both jumping by over 30% year-on-year.
The semiconductor industry is expected to remain in a growth phase until the first half of 2025. Still, we need to wait and see as competition between regions is intensifying.
Shipments of automobiles also soared more than 6%. Hyundai Motor Group, the world's third-largest auto seller, even reported operating profits that outpaced that of the second-largest Volkswagen Group in the third quarter. Amid concerns rising that trade conditions could get worse if President-elect Donald Trump raises tariffs after returning to the White House, one expert has a somewhat brighter prospect.
Trump is putting tariffs on everybody, not just Korea. So everybody will have same problems. I'm not sure if Korea's exports of semiconductors to the United States will fall by very much, because right now, United States has very little semiconductor production facility. Especially for memory chips.
Saying the lack of facilities will not be able to satisfy U.S. companies, he noted that Korea will be able to maintain high exports at least for a year or two, although this might depend on AI demands. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
For our weekly business segment this week, we take a look at Korea's hydrogen economy as part of its broader climate goals. Our economics correspondent Lee Soo-jin joins us in the studio to discuss this topic. Soo-jin, tell us about this particular economy.
Sure, Changmin. So in a hydrogen economy, hydrogen serves as a low-carbon or carbon-free energy source, reducing fossil fuel reliance and greenhouse gas emissions for transportation and power generation. South Korea has ramped up its hydrogen initiative this year, designating November 2nd as National Hydrogen Day for the first time as a legal anniversary. The government is also transferring regions into hydrogen cities, where hydrogen powers buildings and transportation. I went to one such hydrogen city myself, so let's take a look. Cities in South Korea, known for their advanced technology and vibrant culture, are now going green. And one city in Gyeonggi-do province is leading the nation's hydrogen city initiative.
Hydrogen cities are cities equipped to produce, use, and transport hydrogen. Onsan City has turned to hydrogen to promote environmental sustainability and to revitalize its economy.
In the city of Ansan, one of the first 3 hydrogen cities in the nation, 1.8 tons of gray hydrogen is produced daily at this facility with its 3 steam methane reforming reactors. Inside the reactor, methane, a cleaner fossil fuel, undergoes 2 reactions, including one with water, to produce hydrogen. But it's a rather meticulous process as the water needs to be purified. The hydrogen produced is then transported through 13 kilometers of pipelines, partially underground, 2 charging stations and hydrogen fuel cell power plants. The city also plans to partner with private companies to build more hydrogen charging stations, anticipating a larger demand for hydrogen vehicles due to their lower risk of fire.
Hydrogen handling is already standardized, which ensures stability. When managed under high-pressure gas standards, the risk of explosion is minimal.
And at this hydrogen fuel cell power plant, hydrogen is fed into fuel cells that will generate electricity through an electrochemical reaction. This electricity is currently being supplied to the hospital right next to it, as well as to more than 500 homes. But gray hydrogen has its drawbacks as carbon dioxide is emitted during production, which is why the city is developing green hydrogen produced by renewable energy such as wind. Electricity from wind turbines powers these 2 electrolyzers to split purified water into oxygen and green hydrogen, which is then compressed for efficient transport in tube trailers. Although this facility is still in the testing phase, the city expects technologies like this to one day be used nationwide.
A hydrogen city, that's interesting. How has Korea's private sector moved to advance the hydrogen economy?
Well, for one, major companies are also contributing to nationwide hydrogen infrastructure efforts. Hyundai Motor deployed the first hydrogen car carrier at Pyeongtaek Port last month, and on Wednesday it was announced that SK E&S will invest over 3 trillion won, or around $2 billion in hydrogen energy plants in the city of Poryong. This comes as the Prime Minister shared the government's plans to increase hydrogen's energy share to 10% in 12 cities by 2050 at last Friday's Hydrogen Economy Committee meeting.
The global hydrogen market is projected to reach trillions of dollars by 2050, which is substantial considering the $600 billion chip market. And that's why the government has introduced a clean hydrogen certification system.
And what can be done to encourage further growth of this economy at home?
Well, government officials and experts alike say that investment is key. According to one expert, while there have been efforts to increase investment, there needs to be support specifically geared towards helping local companies develop technology that can produce, transport, and utilize hydrogen on their own. Here's what he said.
If the government supports technology development and regulatory measures, I believe that within 5 to 6 years, we'll be able to use renewable energy like hydrogen as safely as we currently do fossil fuels.
With support in the form of policies, funds, and initiatives like Hydrogen Cities, Korea's hydrogen economy is expected to soon reach its full potential.
All right, thank you, Soo-jin, for the report today.
Thank you for having me.
Today, the cold reached its peak, the season of Ipdong, which marks the beginning of winter on the lunar calendar. In Seoul this morning, the first ice was observed this fall. This is 1 day earlier than last year and 4 days later than usual. Tomorrow, it will be mostly sunny in inland areas and it will be colder than usual in the morning. The early winter cold will gradually ease as the temperature rises from tomorrow afternoon. It will be 17 degrees in the middle of the day in Seoul, about 3 degrees higher than today. Tomorrow, Chuncheon will start off at 2 degrees, Busan 12 degrees. Highs will move up to 17 degrees in Seoul, Chuncheon 16, Gwangju 19 degrees. It will be mostly sunny from this weekend. The weather will continue to exceed the average temperature. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.